Hey class, Adam here. Thanks for joining me on this video about how to complete the social media plan assignment. We didn't really have a chance to go over it today in class. That's okay. It's a little bit involved, and so I think this will actually work out being a better way so that you can, watch it through at your own pace. Also, other things like we kind of rushed today in class over the social media plan, and so if you felt like you didn't come away like having learned a lot, that's okay. Typically that lesson would have taken up a whole day. And so I think most of the content, like most of the things that you learn, will come from on Tuesday whenever we do the sort of the jigsaw method. Because there's not a lot like conceptually that goes into the social media plan. It's more a lot of like tips and tricks and best times to post and like the right number of words to post and so on and so forth. What we're going to do now is actually like the more conceptual stuff, which is how to write like a communication plan. So this is one part learning, one part covering your assignment. This video isn't going to be very slickly produced in the interest of time. So we can have like a really bootleg like musical intro now. This is Adam's songs about furniture because I was like, sometimes I'm like, I wonder if I can make up a playlist about like insert random word. And there are more songs about furniture than you would ever realize. Like this was what I could come up with off the top of my head. Anyway, so
whose bed have your boots been under?
That's enough of that. Great, super. All right, so this is Scholar. Perhaps it'll look familiar to you. I hope to God it looks familiar to you at this point. So you're going to go to the social media lesson. And I don't know if you ever read the objectives, but like these are things that I want you to learn. So if there's ever any doubt about like, why are we doing this? This is why. Just read the objectives. And so you're going to need two files to complete the assignment. The first one is right here, communicating with a purpose. For those of you who were in the fundamentals of extension class the other day with me, bless your hearts, you get a sneak peek at this because we covered it there. So you need that file, and then also down here the actual assignment guide for the social media plan. And I have them both open already. I feel like it's a cooking show, and I'm like, oh, here's one I prepared earlier. So here's the assignment guide. Just to go over the rationale, again, I think sometimes, particularly in agriculture, people are like, oh, I don't need to be on social media. But you do, because that's where people are. Even people in agriculture, still get on social media from time to time. Again, just like we talked about in class, it's where the people are. And so if you can meet them where they're at and then lure them back to whatever your content is, then more power to you. It also allows you to have a personality online, which we talked about today, and it allows, by virtue of its platform, it allows for two-way communication, which is something that I feel like people really want, with their organizations that they love, today. That you may not want them to love you. You may want them to be indifferent toward you, in which case you could have no personality online and not have any way for them to talk back to you. And we'll see how far that gets you in life. Anyway, all right, so the overview, pretty straightforward. You're going to draft a social media campaign plan. And so this essentially has two parts. One part is the actual plan itself, and the other part is the content that goes with the plan. And so, again, this is in the context of your organization. And so you can promote either your organization as a whole. So you could be like, the National Wildlife Fund does this, and just talk about your thing. Or you can talk about a specific component or program or activity or event or whatnot, within the context of your organization. So, the NAAE may not need for you to know who they are. They may want to focus more on, there's an annual conference coming up and we really want for you to attend or submit abstracts or whatever the case is. That could be their communication plan. So, use it in a way that makes most sense to you. So other things about this, your roles, you guys right now at this juncture in time, which, right now at this juncture in time is redundant right now. Anyway, you're going to be working at the same time on a grant application, a social media plan, and a white paper. And what I do not want to happen is for you to say, all right, you two guys do this and us two girls will do this. because that doesn't lead to learning, and we're here to learn. So everybody needs to have some role in each of the assignments, to a lesser or greater degree. So I've got some, 2 or 3 sample roles that you could use here. You could also make up your own. I feel like each, assignment probably needs like a project coordinator, like somebody to keep everybody on task. So designate that person. There could be a copy editor. Sorry, I'm getting things. Let's see here. Turn this off. Boom. All right, that was super professional. Anyhow, copy editor, fact checker. Also, there could be a content generator, like somebody that goes out and looks for pictures or graphs or whatnot. So these are things that you could do. Divide it up in a way that works for you. So now let's talk about the parts of the plan. And so obviously you need a title. All great, campaigns have a title. So come up with one and then put it on the cover page. You needed to talk about your overall tone or voice, and you need to write this in a paragraph style, like a narrative. Fat piece still applies here, and you just need to talk about, what do you want your voice to sound like online for your organization? Like, if your organization were a person, who would it sound like? And so you can refer back to this section here, the readings, and there's one right here. This is what I showed you in class: 20 great social media voices and how to develop your own. So I would refer back to that when writing that section. And that can be like a paragraph or two. The next thing is objectives, and this is where our PowerPoint comes into play. Objectives, target audience, key messages, selected communication methods. These are all things that we cover over here in this great presentation called Communicating with Purpose. And so starting with objectives. So the first thing that you're going to write is you're going to come up with 3 to 5 objectives. In this, we talked about this in grant application. What do you want to accomplish? It's not good enough to communicate just randomly. We just want to talk to people. No. You need to have objectives for your organization. Do you want them to know about something? Do you want them to take a particular action? Do you want to generate sales in a particular area? Whatever it is, figure out what it is, and then write your objectives for it. Your objectives need to be written in the SMART format. So specific, measurable, meaningful, attainable, whatever R stands for, and timely. And so if you go back to the grant application page, let's see where to go. You can find a little reading that you should have done about that. Maybe this is news to you, maybe it's not, but SMART objectives and how to accomplish them. So you're going to write, according to this guy here, 3 to 5 objectives for this social media plan. All right. Now here's the part where it gets tricky, so stay with me. For each objective, you're going to do a target audience, a key message, communication methods, plan for communication, and time horizon for each objective, because each objective may have a different audience, and then that leads to a different message, and that leads to different methods. So it's going to end up being a little bit involved. You write your 3 to 5 objectives. I won't repeat it anyway. Hopefully you understand. So let's assume you write an objective. We'll deal with objective 1. The next thing that you need then to do is identify your target audience. So we go back over here to target audience. Where'd it go? Boom. So think about your target audience. What do they look like? What factors define them? How old are they? What's their education level? What are their values? Things that they value. Are they people from Appalachia that really strongly value family or whatever? What is their knowledge level of whatever it is that you're doing? Are they, industry insiders, or is it the general public and they probably don't know much about agriculture, and so that's where you need to start. Think it through, and write out in a narrative form, what is my audience? All right. So the next thing is the key message. So depending on your audience, they'll get a different message, right? So you think what do I need them to know? So we'll go back over here. Man, struggling today. All right. Key messages by audience. And so, ask yourself, what do people need to know or understand or do in order for your program to be successful? What would you want them to know about your program if they live in your community? Is there any information that maybe should not be shared? And so think through what your key messages are. So in this example, I have the really cheesy sort of example of, the feed store, and they, they mainly sell horse and livestock feed, but they also sell pet food, and their objective is that they want for people to purchase their pet food, and know that this is the thing that they do. So their key message just could simply be, that we also sell pet food, and we have great high quality pet food, and it's cheaper than it is at Walmart, amazingly enough. So these are all key messages that you could have. And so you need to think about strategically like what those are, and then come back and then figure out, all right, what is our selected communication method? This is the next step. And so depending on your audience and depending on what your message is, you may choose a different method. It could be all Twitter, it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be a mixture. It just depends on you and what your needs are. But the main thing is that you learn to think about it strategically. So here are some things that you can address. Are there any specific, location-specific hindrances? So like if you're in Appalachia, maybe people don't have the internet. That's a problem for social media. That'll shut you down right there. Anyway, what is your target audience preference? There's lots of good data out there. You don't even have to go scholarly to find that. Like you can just Google what a 34-year-olds prefer, to communicate with, and there'll be an answer. And then resources, what does this take for the purpose of my business? Is it just time? Do we need to, hire like an intern? Like what? The last one then is now design for two-way communication. This is another thing here, plan for two-way communication. People like to talk back. One of the great things about social media is that it allows people to communicate with you. And so, this could be as simple as, we're going to do Facebook posts, and then we're going to allow comments, and then we're going to invite people to comment, and then we're also going to comment, and then we're going to have a little discussion right there on the page about pet food. All right. And so that don't overthink it. Like that's all I mean by plan for two-way communication. It could also be like if we're on Twitter that, once a week we are going to, poll the audience, ask them a question about, something, and then invite them to respond. And that's all it is. Time horizon is actually pretty straightforward. It basically means like every campaign has a beginning and an end. That's what makes it a campaign. And so, and it may coincide with a particular start, or time of the year. So in my example here, I say, you wouldn't want to run up your new swimsuit line in February because nobody's thinking about that because it's really cold outside. So, think about like what time of the year is this social media plan going to be put into effect. So, for you guys, again, back to my feed store, example, if you're selling seed, like, maybe your plan, has you doing this social media push in the run up to whatever season it is that you plant the seed that you're trying to sell. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. The same way back to NAAE, if their conference season is coming up, maybe they want to get a jump, and so they start like 3 months ahead of when the conference is. Just have a timeline and think about it. The last thing here is how to plan to implement the plan. Double planning, meta planning, inception planning. All right. And so that's pretty straightforward. We go back over here, how to implement the plan. And basically it's just like in your organization, and this could include fictional people as well. Make a list of activities that need to happen. Develop materials, who's going to draft the copy, like who's actually going to post stuff and when. And then just put it into a little, schematic like this. Doesn't have to look exactly like this. Make something that works for you, that includes your timeline that you talked about earlier, and who's going to do what when, and if it's been done. So good. And then this last part, hopefully for people that are visual learners, like hopefully this will help you conceptually understand what I'm asking for. So for each objective, you're going to have your audience written out and what makes them unique. Or what are the characteristics of this particular audience? What are the key messages that you're trying to, convey under this objective? And there may be, 2 or 3 or 4. And then also, what are the communication methods? Like, are we going to do Instagram, Twitter, what have you? And so when you see it like this, it's not too bad. And then for each objectives, you just complete this process. It doesn't have to be really involved. Don't overthink it. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. The second part is the actual content. And here's where it gets tricky. Stay with me. Focus. For each objective, remember we get 3 to 5, you're going to give at least 5 examples of messages in the appropriate communication method. So what I mean by that is if the seed feed store, again, identified one of their objectives and key messages as we're more than simply cow feed, we also have pet food, then you've identified Facebook as the best method, then what I expect for you to show me is 5 examples of a Facebook post. So 5 things that you're going to say when you're going to post them. And then if they include pictures, include the picture. If they include links, include the links. And then that way we get a sense that you know how to, you put forward the best practices, so if you're using Twitter, we would look for some of those best practices. When we're grading, I would look for some of those best practices about, I think the sweet spot is 88 characters, and if you include pictures, you get 55% more click through. So you just sort of apply those things that we learned in class to this method. All right, that was a lot. So let's outro with Shania Twain.
And whose heart did you steal? I wonder.